Yep, here we are. We're back, Nate and Brian. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Nate and Brian? What is this, episode 14?
Yes, 14. Where's the
God, episode 14.
Yes, sir. Well, we can
Yeah.
just keep going conversation. So, we were talking about manifestation and talking about putting things out, into the universe and how things will show up the more in alignment you are and the more that we were just talking about forcing things, right? Not trying to force things, taking inspired steps and inspired action, but not trying to make things happen the way we think they're supposed to happen. Because typically we will see, I do truly believe we will be given our heart's desires and we'll see these things kind of come together. But the human mind always wants to force things. It better happen this way, but it's going to happen this way. Like, you'll be divinely given the people you need, the resources you need, whatever it is. I believe the minute you're like, okay, like, this is my heart's desire, the when and the how, I don't know how that's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but this is what it is. This is what my heart wants. And then you just, as you start seeing things come together, you start taking steps, right?
Well, it's just like what you said in episode 13. When you believe it, you will see it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're like you said, like we're so worried about we're logical beings, and we're only. It's almost like we're kind of like prisoners in that aspect of human existence.
Yep.
And it's like we're always worried about the when and the how,
Yep.
and not what you were just saying with just trust the process, like manifest in divine time what you desire, as it will happen.
Well, it's I know I've said this on some of our previous podcasts, but it's like Wayne Dyer said, infinite patience will bring immediate results, right? So I think when you sit, you and I were just talking about this off camera, when you sit in a state of, just like you said, almost passiveness in a sense, but it's just peacefulness is the way I look at it. You're peaceful with where you are right now, and you're taking the divine action, the inspired action, and then you see things start to happen, right? It's when we're in that anxious, like, I want to see it happen right now. Like, this needs to already blow up. You know what I mean? Whatever the case is, whatever it is you're looking for, that house I want, man, I want to see it tomorrow. And I think oftentimes that's why we don't see things work out. But then all of a sudden, you see something 6 months later, a year later, and you're like, wow, like, this actually happened. Well, I think it's once you let go and you realize, because a lot of times it's like you're going after something, trying to make it happen. It doesn't happen. So then what do? You just let go. Oh, I'm not going to worry about it anymore. And then all of a sudden it happens and you're like, well, wait a minute. Well, yeah, because it wasn't time for it to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I live life believing and knowing that there's a divine time for everything. I will say knowing, because I believe that once you know things aren't meant the way they're supposed to be, they start to happen. And so you can look at it, even if it appears to be quote unquote negative, you look at it and say, all right, this was supposed to happen. This thing was put there to move me this direction or to prevent this from happening so I can get to where I'm supposed to be going.
Well, it's just like what we were talking about. Like, there's no such thing as coincidence.
No, I don't believe it. Oh,
So like now, like what we were just talking about with, what I was talking about with career stuff and all that kind of stuff. Like, even if it seems, I think we've said this before, but even if it seems to not play in your favor, there's a reason why that's happening. It could be, maybe it's not time yet. You're not ready. Maybe you have something to learn, So most people don't see it that way. They're going to be like, oh, it didn't work out for me. My life sucks.
yeah.
But when you look at life from the lens of everything is teaching me something, then, or like what you and I were, like that spiritual divine kind of awareness, you're like, okay, this makes sense.
Absolutely. That's why, I mean, often I slow down, like because, again, just because I tell people, just because like I've been meditating for several years or do whatever, doesn't mean I don't have days or moments where my mind wants to be like, well, why is this going on? Like, this isn't going the way I would like it to go. I need this to happen. But then if I slow down, I go meditate for a little bit, go get mindful for a little bit, just kind of calm myself back down. It's like I get back into that peaceful place. Then it's like you're back in that divine alignment, and then things are coming right as they're supposed to. And like you said, so even when we're going through something that we perceive as negative, it's truly not. It's just there to help you learn, grow, whatever, expand. Like you said, there could be something you truly want and it's on its way to you, but you're not ready for it because if you got it right now, you would totally F it up. So it's like, yep, I'm not gonna do that. You know what I mean? And I know that because I know that there's times in my life I can look back on, and I try not to live in the past, but there's times in my life where I looked at things and said, hey, I want this, this, and this. They happened. And because I hadn't been working on myself at that point, hadn't been growing, hadn't been doing any of that, I just totally just screwed all of it up. And I'm like, see, and then now I understand. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to get things when you're not ready because that's where you see a lot of people, whether they're like athletes or movie stars or whatever, you see them go through a bunch of stuff. It's like they got this fame and they didn't know what to do with it. They weren't ready. They hadn't been working on themselves, and then they blow it. And it's like, all of a sudden it's like, dude, what did you do? They weren't ready for it.
Yeah, I just my brother had made a post about something with purpose or being on a path the other day,
Hmm.
and I commented, and this is actually a pretty good topic I think for a lot of people to hear, is that when you're on a path, or when you are, it was about challenges and obstacles on the path. And in his post, he was like, yeah, I'm going to keep moving forward, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's good. But I commented, when you're having difficulties on the path, that means that's a good sign, because that means that you're either on the right path or you're on the path to the right path,
Yeah.
because you're still learning. Those obstacles are there for you to learn from.
Yep. Absolutely.
To include, and it doesn't even have to be anything physical or in our 3D realm. It could be mental.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
if someone's like negative, or like doesn't like, just like if you don't have faith, you don't believe in yourself, then yeah, you're not going to accomplish what you want to, because you're not putting any positive energy into anything. You're just like, I hope this works out, without actually truly manifesting it.
Absolutely.
What you're doing is you're actually manifesting your own failure.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I tend to agree with that. I think that like, the whole like even having hope is not a bad thing, but I tell people like, what I'm learning and continue to learn is that you have to have a knowing. Like I'm going into this, this is happening, you know what I mean? And you put it out there, hey God, source, whatever you want to call it, hey, I'm this is my heart's desire. This is what I'm doing. Show me the steps. I trust that divine time, but I know it's going to happen. And again, it goes back to I don't know the when, I don't know the how, but it's going to happen. And oftentimes, if that what you put out there didn't happen, but you're still going with your passion, your heart, and your intention, you'll be divinely led to right where you're supposed to go. Because how many times do people say like, "Yeah, I wanted to go do X, Y, and Z," and that path took them, like you said, to the right thing that they were actually supposed to be doing. Then one day they wake up and they're like, "This is a life like better than I ever could have dreamed of." But it's because that's one thing I do is I put my stuff out there with a knowing, but I also surrender each time and say, if there's a greater plan, then let it be.
dude, it's
You know?
crazy. You just reminded me. The other day, I watched a documentary about Sylvester Stallone
Oh wow.
on Netflix, and I was listening to what he was saying, and I was like, this dude is in tune, because his whole documentary was about his life, and about his wanting to be an actor and whatnot.
Yep.
So, but a lot of the concepts that we talk about, it showed in his life story, because no one wanted him to be like a leading person. So what he did was, he was like, okay, I'll just write. So he started writing like screenplays. So basically, he wasn't getting hired as like an actor, really.
Hmm.
But what he did was, he all he I mean, it's not all he did, but what he did was, in a sense, he manifested it, because he created his own path through writing his own movies and put himself in it. He wrote it, directed it, and acted in it, like Rocky, for example.
I heard that about him with the whole Rocky script, and then they weren't going to even hire him in it.
Or I don't know if it was that. Like, he had been in a couple. He had been in a movie to be like an extra or
Hmm.
whatever. But he almost gave up. But then he just started writing with his friend, the guy who's in Happy Days. Freaking what's his name? Uh, dang, I can't remember. The
I don't
Fonz.
know. Oh, the
He's
Fonz.
friends with the Fonz.
He
I don't
wrote.
remember the actor's name, but like just based on watching that, I was like, wow, like Sylvester Stallone is really kind of like, and he even talked about like divine intervention
Yeah,
kind of thing. He was like this. He was like all these things happened. It was almost like divine timing or whatever, and it worked. You know, so it's like that's another thing too. Is even though if you want something and it seems like nothing's going your way, like if it's something that you truly want, don't give up on it. You
yeah,
know?
absolutely. No, that's 100% true. That's think about that. Like I don't know. I've always heard how so many people are right about to break through, like have their break through that door, that thing that they've been their hearts desired, but they quit right at that door. You know what I mean? Because it just seemed so hard, and it's very easy because right we live a lot of times in a state of fear because we're told like that's not working, why don't you go, like if you're creating a business, you're creating this thing that you want to serve people with, and it doesn't look like it's going as quickly as according to people what they think it should, which when people think that you're creating a business and you're going to be a millionaire in a year, it's bullshit because you're not. So when people are putting that on Instagram, it's fake. That, like, not to say that that never happens, but you know I've literally heard of people going to rent a Lamborghini and like recording a clip and like, look at me. And, it's just, it's like people stop following the nonsense and start understanding, like put that manifestation like Sylvester Stallone. I did hear about some, I haven't watched that documentary, but I'll check it out because I've heard of his struggles that he went through, to get to where he was at. Um, but he never gave up. Hence the movie Rocky. I mean, he never gave up, even though he was like the underdog, and just everybody thought he was down and out. But that's the thing, is I think that's the whole premise of that story, right? Is don't quit, even when things are hard in life, because guess what? You're close, especially if you're going with intention and passion towards something. Like you're gonna get there. It's usually not an easy road. I'll tell you right now, like people like entrepreneurs, like I said, I mean, that's why I've like when I started my first business, following them, because every single one I've heard, none of them had an easy story. None of them were like, oh yeah, everything just came together and it was perfect. They're like, no, they're like, it was, all of them were like, it was hard as hell. You know what I mean? Like to get to my dream. But like they said, along that hard journey, they learned so much, right? All of them end up being better people. They end up getting rid of things that don't serve them. Like every single one of them I followed, they're like, they were doing this, doing that, and then they were like, okay, I got to become a better version of me to be able to serve and give whatever it is you want to do. And at the end of the day, what happens? You become better, then you help other people become better. So you're actually serving while you're here, you know? So that
Yeah.
hard road is the journey. It's worth it. It's enjoying the journey, even though it may not be always be rainbows and butterflies, but you'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that he mentioned was, you know, I think it falls into the concept of kind of what we're talking about because he was like, all these people are telling me what I can't do
Mm-hmm.
or what I shouldn't do, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, who are they? Like, he's basically saying, don't listen to the naysayers, like
Yeah,
if it's in your heart and it's in your soul, like pursue it no matter what anybody says. Because I think a lot of times in any aspect of life, we tend, especially people that love us or our friends or whatever, like you take their word as almost like, okay, I should or shouldn't do this. But if you let other people's opinions sway your decision making and what you feel like your true purpose is, then you're never going to find it either.
absolutely. No, for sure. You made me think of, again, Wayne Dyer was one of my greatest spiritual mentors. He said, he goes, to become a true self-actualized person, he goes, you don't worry about the good nor bad opinion of anyone, right? So, like you just said, it could be family. Oftentimes it will be family because they have the best intention for you, but they're like, hey, don't you see that it's not working? Like stop pursuing whatever that is you're going after. But if your heart and your passion is in it, it's gonna happen. It just may not happen as quickly as they think. And you may have to go through some trials and tribulations to get to that place. But man, when you see it all come together, you're like, okay, this was well worth it, whatever it is, because that's what you were put here to do. But again, we're taught, especially in the Western world, that we have this one path to follow, And it's funny because I was just talking about this earlier. Is we're told get a career, get married, have some kids, and then just repeatedly do that thing. But don't go outside that box. But for so many people, they're living that life and they're unhappy in it because that's not what their soul's purpose and mission is here. So they're living this life that they were told to live by fear, as opposed to this is very unknown and uncomfortable, but I'm going to go do this instead.
Well, we've talked about this with our podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like we are taking that concept and just a part of what it makes me think of is like enjoy the journey.
Yeah. No,
You
I've
know,
heard.
like don't worry. Like we talk about numbers and all that stuff, but we don't really worry about them because we're like, it's gonna be what it's meant to be.
Absolutely.
Like I feel like a lot of people start off something and they're so like opinions, or they're worried about logical steps. Like it's good. It's important to take logical steps, but also understand that trying to control every little aspect or constantly worrying about something is not going to help you at all.
Well, no, worrying, you're just pushing it away. One, two, think about how many times has quote unquote logic got us into stupid things that we shouldn't be doing, right? Because following everything supposedly logically, I mean, look at people that create amazing things. Most of them didn't follow any kind of logical path. They went their own route, right? They blazed their own trail. They figured it out, and they were like, "Hey, I have this different vision. I want to serve this way. I want to do this thing," and it wasn't the way anybody else would have told them to do it. you know so I mean, I think it's truly going with passion and taking inspired action, and that's when you tend to end up right where you're supposed to be, right? But again, it usually never happens the way we think it's going to happen, because again, going back to the logical mind's like, well, for this to happen, I need this to happen and this person to come to my life and this thing to happen, and it's like it goes a completely different route, and you're like, holy crap, I got here, but that wasn't the way I thought of it. It's like, yeah, because that's not the way things work.
Well, yeah,
you know?
dude, think about that. Think about that for a second. How many shady ass business deals have been done because people are so like, I need it, I need it, I need it. So I'll get into dealings with this person who's maybe not have the best integrity, and now they can blackmail me or whatever. And it's like,
Are you talking about are you talking about our government on a regular basis?
well, maybe, but but
Jeez.
it's not just government. Anybody, like
No, I know.
yeah, like anybody who think about what I'm saying that's like the catalyst for people to get into dealings with people that they shouldn't be, is
Of course.
because they're like they want this thing so bad, and it's almost like when freaking the Garden of Eden and the devil, it's like, yeah, I can give you everything you want, but you have to do this or blah blah blah. And it's like, is it worth it? Because in the long run, you're losing. Don't sacrifice your integrity for the sake of success. I
No,
don't know.
no, yeah, 100%. Because I firmly believe when people do that kind of stuff, those are the people that ultimately self-destruct, right? They self-destruct. They end up, miserable. They're the ones, that are usually sitting there doing 8 ball of cocaine a day because they don't know how to feel. They don't know how to deal with life. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, seriously. I mean, it's the truth. It's like those are the people that are so miserable. They're like, oh, I got all this stuff, but I don't like life. It's like, well, then you probably shouldn't have gone that route so you can sleep at night. You know?
Or at least make it right if you did go that route.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're all gonna falter at times, but yeah, definitely own up to it. Figure out how you can make it, like you just said, make it right. Correct that, and then move forward, because we're all gonna falter. We're all gonna make mistakes. That's part of the human experience. But I think it's like truly just growing and expanding and moving forward, doing things like you said with integrity. I mean, that's the whole thing is follow your passions and your path, but always do it with integrity. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be much happier, and you're going to be at a place of like, when you do get to this place that you always desired to be, you're going to do that with a clean conscience, and you're going to feel good about it, right? Because like I said, I truly believe once you put it out there, it's like I said, that the Abraham Hicks book, Ask and Is Given, it's already done once you ask for it. You have to align yourself to it. But oftentimes, if you're doing things in a very shady manner, it may seem like you're succeeding, but I've heard stories over and over. People are like, "Oh, they're doing great," and then they crumble. It may take some time, but it happens. So
All right, let's shift gears a little bit because we talked about this, I think, before we started recording. But I want to ask you, what do you think? Do you think that projecting and manifesting are parallels of each other, or do you think that they're completely different things?
well, yeah, we touched on that a little bit off camera. Well, like I said, there's two. To me, I think you can project out to the universe. Hey, this is what I want to bring to life. This is what I'm, this is what I'm expecting. I want these things, right? But I think that there's also the other aspect of projecting, where we've talked about it before, even on our podcast, is projecting out. Like, so when someone's coming up to you and they're talking about you and they're talking shit about you, and oh man, they're on you. eh, like oftentimes, if not every time, it's their own problems inside of themselves, right? So they're projecting their own internal battles onto you. Because like what I've learned over the years, so just to touch on that quickly, is just what I've learned over the years is um, through my own failures is basically like when I when I feel something inside, like I don't know if I ever really often at all go and project things on people anymore, because I always catch myself and say, okay, like why are you feeling like this? This has something to do with you. And like I'll look at other people and be like, they have something going on inside of them, so don't even point at them. Just that's why they're treating you the way they are, because they have their own battles. So when we were talking about the projection and manifestation, I mean, I guess you could say they're kind of parallel, because if you're projecting something onto somebody else, you're manifesting what you're putting out there. Our words are powerful, right? So you
Well,
can
it's
project.
also it's not, you know, no, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but the way I think about it is it's not just your words are powerful because behind it is energy.
Yeah, for
So if you
sure.
have negative energy that you're spewing out your mouth, that's what's going to be returned, you know?
Yep, absolutely. That's why I always tell people I'm so adamant about it. And people, like I said, oftentimes like, you're always so positive. I would rather be positive. It doesn't mean I don't have moments of like, being frustrated. Like you and I've talked about that before. I definitely have moments of like frustration, or in a sense could be negativity at that moment. But I don't hold on to that. I let it go, and I'm like, no, I'm going to focus on, like you just said, positive energy. I'm a firm believer that the more that you're positive, the more often that you're just staying in a state of happiness, that you'll see life flow the way you really would like it to flow. But like you just said, if you're projecting a bunch of negativity, guess what's turning around like a boomerang coming right back at you? All that negativity. You know what I mean? And if I tell people, don't put that shit out there. That's not the way you want to live.
Gonna
You know.
kick you like Kangaroo Jack.
Yeah.
But no, actually, what you were just saying, it made me think about Jordan Peterson. Um, because I feel like, so we talk a lot about projecting and we use negativity as an example, like when someone's being crazy at somebody else because they're projecting their own inner stuff onto somebody else.
Mhm.
I think you could compare it to society, because Jordan Peterson has talked about this in sort of a philosophical, intellectual, biblical way. Is it's like if you look at mankind, it's like all this stuff that we see about, oh, I'm this. It's like nowadays, it's like a trend to have like a mental illness, or like,
Yeah.
or no, like it's like I don't know how to say it without sounding like an asshole. It's like it's instead of taking accountability for your own stuff, you just project it onto somebody else. So what Jordan Peterson says is it's bear your cross. It's your cross to bear. So imagine if, and what made me think of it is that is projecting or is projecting onto people. It's like just because you're dealing with something doesn't mean it's, if you want everyone around you to feel the same pain that you're feeling, then that's not a good thing. You're just projecting out more negativity. So, in this metaphorical sense, bear your cross, bear your weight. You're accountable for it. What you do, I've actually also told my brother this too. I'm like, I told him, what you decide to do, it's not the obstacle that's in your way. It's what you decide to do that makes the difference. You
Mhm.
know. So
Mhm.
if you project all your problems on the world, you're not just projecting negativity, you're also absorbing more of it because you're not taking accountability for anything that's inside of yourself. So Like carry your own burdens and figure them out instead of passing them off to other people. You know?
I agree. No, yeah, I agree. And with that, I mean, I would say obviously there is a lot of mental health stuff going on, and it's only gotten worse, but we do have to stop and look at ourselves. And I agree with that. So that's the thing when people are, I'm not saying people aren't struggling with things. I think everybody has something they're struggling with, but definitely ask for help. Look for help. Look for somebody you can talk to. Because I firmly believe that we all need somebody to be able to go deep with. And I don't mean like just a counselor. It could be a life coach. It could be a great friend, family member, whoever, right? Somebody that you just trust to be able to go talk to about your stuff. But I think at the same time, if the person that you're talking to um, can perceive the fact that, hey, you have stuff inside of you, let's work on that instead of, like you said, putting it on everybody else. You know what I mean? Because I truly believe that we all have to. It's kind of like you said, Jordan Peterson said, bear our own cross. Is I believe that yes, we have our own battles, our own things inside. And no, it may not be our fault that we went through whatever it is we went through in life. I believe everything happens for a reason. So we were meant to go through those things and to learn and grow and expand. And like it's like I actually posted something on Facebook earlier, and I really liked it, or I shared it rather. Um, and it talked about how like when you're going through, so like if you're here to help people break their or heal their broken heart, you're going to go through a broken heart, right? If you're here to help the little ones heal from trauma, you have gone through a bunch of trauma. So if you work on your healing and you work on improving, and you start to realize, holy crap, I went through these things and I now have this gift that I can give to other people.
But you see, that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. Even though it seems negative,
Yeah,
that was something that you were supposed to learn.
absolutely. No, that's what that. Yeah, like I told you, that's why I have to remind myself sometimes, but I stop and I look at situations and I'm like, okay, this is not intended to be negative. This is intended to show me something. So that's when I get quiet and I kind of go within and it's like, what am I supposed to be learning from this thing? You know? Um, and yeah, typically I can see what it is. Like, oh, I'm supposed to be learning this. Oh, that's why I went through. Even when I get quiet and go more mindful, I can start thinking about, and I don't live in the past, but I can think about why I went through certain things. And it's like, okay, this is in turn for me to help somebody else, you know?
Yeah.
Um, that's ultimately why we're here. I was just having that conversation, just saying how, I believe we're all here to help each other, to bring light to the world, to serve each other, to love each other unconditionally. But I think that we've been, so conditioned to believe that we're apart and there's supposed to be all this negativity, but I don't believe it's supposed to be that way. I believe we're here to like bring that light to the world.
Well, that's one of the reasons. Well, I mean, that's a big reason why we made the podcast in the first place, is to get these messages out to people. Because, and actually, what we're going to talk about in this episode is different signs that you get on your life journey. So, for example, one sign that is said to be a message or a download or whatever you want to call it is your ears ringing.
Yeah.
So, um, so what do you think? What is your take on the ear ringing thing? Because after this, I want to go and I actually want to tell a dream that I had about a week ago.
Yeah. No, I agree with the ear ringing thing. I mean, it's funny because, having been like before when I worked as a medic, it's sitting there thinking that it was always tinnitus, which that's what they call with the ringing ears, they call it tinnitus, right? But that could be a medical condition. But the thing is I've had, we talked about this, like the ringing in my ear where it comes out of nowhere. I'm sitting there, like sitting like this morning, sitting in meditation. I had that, it was brief this morning, but I'll have it. It's just boom. I get that ringing in my ear, then it's gone. And then I started looking into that as I dove deeper spiritually. I started looking into it and started to realize that, they say it's like a download, like a message from the spiritual realm, right? And we are spirits having a human experience. So we're always in a sense, we're always in the spirit realm, but you are receiving a download. And so I tend to pay attention to it more now. Like if I'm thinking about something, if I'm in a meditation, if there's whatever's going on, and that happens, it's like, okay, what was I just thinking of? Because it's almost like that's the spirit realm's way of catching your attention. You know what I mean? Like, hey,
Yeah.
you were just thinking of this. I just gave you this download. Now I'm gonna have this ringing in your ear. It's kind of like how they say when you find coins or you find white feathers. They say that that's a sign that the angels are present right there. They're showing you, hey, we're right here, and this is what these things mean.
Well,
You know?
dude, I've had that happen. On top of the dream I want to talk about, I've also had that happen very recently with coins
Yeah.
specifically.
Yep.
But the reason why the concept that why I wanted to bring up ears ringing, like what you, it's funny that see, this is a synchronicity right here because you just mentioned coins and I found one the other day, like literally 2 days ago.
Yep.
And then I had a dream that I want to talk about, but the reason why I want to talk about it is because all this is said to encompass the concept of being a quote unquote chosen one.
Hmm.
So I have my thoughts on it, but I want to know what do you think, Brian, about do you think because I don't know. Do you think that being a chosen one, if because so for someone who doesn't understand what you and I understand, they're going to think we're being egotistical if we say, "Oh yeah, we're a chosen one." Do you think
Hmm.
that being a quote unquote chosen one is something that's like uh something that's like solid, like is true, or do you? Because I mean, we've talked about the reason why we made the podcast, like not from an egotistical sense, but from like just trying to bring awareness to everyone about the different side of mankind that no one ever talks about. You know, what do you think about being? What do you think of the concept of being a quote unquote chosen one?
I don't know. I mean, because I firmly believe that we all come here with purpose, right? That's just my belief. I believe that we come here with purpose. But I do believe, like, and Wayne Dyer is the one that made me think of this. He said, one of the things that always stuck with me is he said he believes that those of us that came with a big dharma, a big purpose, tend to have the most challenging lives, tend to go through the most things. And I realized like my life's been, not like it was horrible like when I was young, but like as a teen on, it started to get really challenging. Um, but I now realize that I had to go through those things again to use them to serve other people. And that goes for everything I've ever been in. Like, people will look at it and be like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Well, because I had to make those decisions. I had to deal with those experiences, even though they were shitty decisions a lot of times on my part. Um, that, led me to the place I'm at now to look at life the way I do now so I can serve other people. So I don't know, like, you think about like you think about like these spiritual, like the ascended masters like Jesus or Buddha or whatever, like, they came in, as far as we know, automatically almost knowing what their purpose was. But I don't know if that's the truth, right? That's kind of what we've been told. Maybe they had to go
Yeah, because we only know from the stories and stuff that we've heard and read. We don't know their
and,
whole story,
and we
right?
know the truth. We know that like we just talked about earlier. I believe there's a lot of truth has been emitted from us for years, right? Like things left out of the Bible and like just different things because they only wanted us to know so much. So I mean, I feel like, who knows? Is there really like like a specific chosen one, or is it that we all have great purpose, but at the same time, some of us come and are put here to give I guess you could say a bigger message in a sense. So then that person's talked about, like a person like Gandhi or Nelson Mandela, they're still talked about by tons of people from all, from everywhere, right? Well, they stood for their purpose. They went through a hard experience, but they stood for their purpose. But were they were chosen, I guess they were chosen to bring that message to the world, right? So that's how I kind of feel. I feel like, some of us are here to could be like to make the best pies in the world, and that's how they hit people's hearts. You never know. But then it's like there's some of us, I think, that are here to bring messages and bring more consciousness and light to the world. That's why we experience the things we experience. That's why everybody has a different journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I kind of like, that's why we were talking about this earlier too. Well, not too long ago, also, is just saying that when we're told to follow one path, I'm like, why? We're not all supposed to be doctors, nurses, lawyers, engineers, right? We're here to literally serve whatever our gifts are. And it could be similar to somebody, but I mean, I believe that we all bring something a little bit different that no one else is ever going to bring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe that. Because you and I have talked about this before, and that we've always been different from other people, you
Hmm.
know? And the reason why I bring up the concept of chosen ones is because ears ringing and like different types of things are said to be like, oh, you're a chosen one, blah blah blah. But what I wanted to transition into is different signs that people get because in my life, Like, I've never been like everybody else,
Hmm.
you know. I've always felt like kind of an outsider. We've talked about this before on, I think, other episodes and in private or whatever in our conversations that we have. But the reason why, I don't know, I think it's the issue I have is I believe everything is interconnected. So it's difficult for me to articulate, like, it's just like it's like you said, like you have a knowing. Like for
Hmm.
me, I know everything is connected. I just don't know how to articulate it all the time to make it make sense to other people. So, um, just the other few nights ago, well, lately, it's funny because we had that conversation about how you haven't been sleeping that much, and then lately I haven't really been sleeping that much either. The last week, like
Hmm.
I'll go to bed. I'm like, why am I wide awake? You know. But then one night, and I think I talked about dreams before, and what I'm getting to is like like messages, right? Like ears ringing is like a message they say from the spiritual realm. I think dreams also play a big part in that, at least for me. And I told my wife about this dream, and I'll tell you what she said. But um, so the other night, I had this dream, and this is not the first dream of this kind throughout my life. But this was a different scenario because the one of the dreams I talked about, I think I talked about before in a previous episode, was I was basically in hell fighting a demon with a sword to save my parents. That's what I was doing.
Hmm.
So, but this dream that I just had, and I was a little kid when that dream happened. So like, and I still remember it to this day. I'll never forget it. But this dream was still very still very real, I guess you could say. So I was in like this, it was like a church, but it was like I was standing in the upper level of it, and you could see down to the where everybody was sitting and stuff. And there was this priest next to me, like, and in my dream, when you dream, you're like, I don't know what the hell's going on, right? So he was like, my parents were there and like all this other stuff. And then he was like, and at first it seemed innocent. He was like, okay, you can kiss your loved ones. But then what tripped me off was like, you can kiss your loved ones through me. And I was like, what the hell? So yeah, weird, right? Dude.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know how to describe it, but he was basically, you can kiss your loved one, but they have to kiss them through me. I don't really remember too much of that part. And then I remember, but the message I got from it or reinforces like I can see through bullshit.
Hmm.
So I'm like, this guy's not a priest. So I grabbed him and he turned into a seahorse. Dude, like a yellow seahorse with red eyes. He turned into it. And I was like, this dude's a fucking demon. And then, right? It's crazy. So basically, like I call out his bullshit and I kill him because after that, I grab him. He turns into like this yellow seahorse with red eyes. I grab him, and then instantly it like transitions to me being outside with my son, and and then the seahorse turned into a wasp, and I'm cutting off its head.
Wow.
So it was like a very vivid dream, like very intense.
So
Uh,
do you think that that dream, because it's funny you say that because I've thought about this before and I actually was just watching uh another podcast that I follow, and he was talking with another gentleman about dreams on there and just the meaning of them. And I do believe they all have meaning. I do believe it's something being released. I just don't know, like sometimes, like you said, you have dreams like that where it seems like it's odd, but like they say that when we dream, when our body goes to sleep, like our spirit travels right into different realms. And so those things they say are really happening, they're just happening in a different realm. So who knows, like I mean, maybe you were, maybe there's some dark entities that were trying to do something, who knows, and you had to defeat them just in a different realm. Who knows, I don't know.
well, what bothers me, it was a very like when I woke up, I was very emotional
Yeah.
because it instantly reminded me of that dream I just told you about when I was a kid.
Mhm.
So the way I perceive it is like, oh, you're here to wake people up and fight evil, because it's like, but what this is going to go way off topic. Well, not really, but kind of. But I told my wife about it, and she's like, you must have interacted with a reptilian. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's not off topic. That's not off topic. Yeah, I think
So you've heard of them. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I think there's reptilians in our government.
Dude, yeah. Well, I didn't discount what she said because I had heard of them before. It's a whole thing. There's plenty of YouTube videos about it.
Yep.
Um, and they say that the reptilians are like a race that's here, or interdimensional beings or whatever, that's like here to control us and enslave us. And it's like,
I've heard
and
the same.
all that did was double down the meaning of the dream for me. That's it. I was like, okay, I'm here to help wake people up with Brian. That's why we're called Warriors of Light, and fucking crush evil and try to help mankind. So it's like, I don't know. It's just that dream was a little crazy. But yeah.
Well, I think no. I think the more that we help people become conscious, right? Because like we talk about, like it's funny you bring that up, reptilian. Yeah, I've seen many things on it over the last several years, and I remember even first hearing about it. You're kind of like, I remember when I first heard about it, I was like, what? But then you start to really like look into things, and you start to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? Because we, again, as humans, we're taught like we're the only ones here. That's it. We have all this other planets and things, but nothing else exists. Well, we all know that's bullshit.
Dude,
And
it goes into there's even been people who've said there's like a federation of other beings, and we're like kept in the dark about it. Like
yeah,
like in space.
well, we were talking about Billy Carson earlier, and he talks about the Anunnaki and stuff like that. Like these previous life, this other races and things that were out there. Um, but we're a lot of this stuff is just now starting to come out over the last several years. But it's good because we're all supposed to be enlightened, right? I mean, we come here with the veil over us, and now it's like the veil's being lifted more than ever. So I do believe that there are all these other, whether it's reptilians or like obviously talk about, aliens and different. There's more life out there, and I believe there are some life that, yeah, they want to, like you said, enslave us, control us, and then there's this other life that's like, no, I want to like stop that stuff from happening. I heard a story. I don't know it all in perfect detail, but it was on one of the podcasts I watched, and it's a pretty prominent podcast. And they're talking about, I guess there was nuclear weapons being made in a building somewhere, like it was out in it's like this kind of hidden location, and they they said like a UFO, quote unquote UFO, whatever you want to call that, went over the top and kind of disrupted the entire process. So, and it was caught. I guess it was caught on camera, but there's documentation on it. But yeah, kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard plenty of stories about how there's like, I've seen a lot of stuff about star seeds, freaking different government officials being reptilians and all this other stuff. Like, and it's just like, once you start to look into it, it kind of makes sense. And you're just like, what the heck is going, like, what is going on? Like, are we really, like, for example, in America, are we really free, or are we just kind of like given a watered down version of slavery?
Well, no, that's what, like, I've heard that recently. That basically it's like over the years they've slowly but surely been trying to basically enslave us. Um, and that that's that select few, that 1% that's over there. Hey, we're gonna take over. So we're gonna give them all these systems and feed them all this crap, telling them that we're helping them, and we're actually not. We're actually boxing them in, and that's why I'm so adamant about people banding together. Stop trying to just live for yourself. Stop trying to live for, oh, I want to go acquire these things. Like, why don't we start banding together and see how much we can make change as a unit, as a whole? Because like I said, again, my heart always feels like we're here to love each other, to help each other, love unconditionally, support each other with our gifts. Like, we have our gifts. Okay, well, cool. I was given this gift. I know I can inspire you to do that and help your life be better. Well, then you can also give me something to help me be better. That's what we're all here for, right? But look at the systems that have been built. Every system that you see is literally here to cause segregation, cause fights, cause disagreements. Let's all be against each other. I better go get more than you. All these different things. And I'm like, that's why you have all these people against each other when we were all actually supposed to come here to be together. So, and that's in my opinion. Um,
No,
so
I
yeah.
agree. I agree with you because I don't know, man. I think there's like we're talking about manifesting and projecting, and I feel like there's so much more to us as humans than what we've been led to believe.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you're like, especially just like you and I, like, dude, or even the person you said you met, you know, like everyone has abilities that they're not even aware of.
Hmm.
Like in that, so when I was because I've heard of all these things before and I believe in them, like claircognizance, clairvoyance, all that stuff. And then I started to think, I'm like, oh crap, I've experienced, and they went down the list of all the different clair stuff. And I'm like, I've experienced all of that. So is it possible to have all of those? Because I felt energy from other people. I've known stuff that someone's gonna like say or whatever, and you could be like, and people can watch this and be like, oh, you're just predictable or whatever, blah, blah, whatever. Or like, I feel like there's, I feel like everything is interconnected. Like demons slash different races slash spirituality, slavery, mankind. Like I think, like what you said, like we're all supposed to be one, and we all have these abilities, but only, and that's the reason why I brought up the topic of chosen ones, is because maybe not from an egotistical standpoint, but maybe that there are certain people in this world that are meant to awaken people to these things, to these abilities, and then but they're shunned by society because they're just deemed as crazy.
Well, I think, but see, I agree. I think that that's all changing now, though. You know, like you see a ton of podcasts out there now that are talking about all of these things, these esoteric things that we see. Like, hey, we do have gifts. We do have deeper gifts that we know. And like you said, I mean, I believe in all of those things as well. Um, and I think that now that's why, like, I think even 5, 10 years ago, you wouldn't be hearing as much of this coming out, even though it was presence. People were talking about it. I think about Wayne Dyer was doing all his work, and he's been talking about a lot of this stuff for years. But yeah, a lot of times, people are told you're crazy, oh, you need to go get meds or go to a psych ward or whatever. But I'm like, but now way more people are starting to realize, like, hey, this stuff does exist. Like, we've been lied to. And that's why I say the more of us that are out there trying to help each other become more conscious and aware of our abilities and the fact that we all are a part of God and we all have these strengths and these gifts and these abilities to help each other and to make this place a beautiful place, then, like, let's come together, let's wake more and more people up, and let's do that. Let's stop following this stuff. That's why I say it's like, let's stop following the systems we've been given, these systems that have been put in place to keep us apart, to enslave us, right? Come follow the system, come and work for me and come and do this, go do your job, go pay your bills and die. Like, that's just stupid. That's not why we're here. We're literally here for so much deeper purpose and reason. And that's why I tell people, follow your passions, follow your gifts. I tell people this stuff all the time. I have conversations with people. It's just like a person that I was, when I was still managing that place I was managing. Um, I told her she was miserable at her inner job, and I told her, I said, what are you passionate about? What do you love? And she was telling me one day, and I told her, I said, think about what you're really here for. It's not what you're doing. And we had a deep conversation. And actually, it's funny because she called me Monday. We were talking, and she goes, "You always get me thinking." I said, "That's the point. That's why you're intended to call me. That's why you're intended to have these conversations,
Right?
because
At the bare minimum, the point is to get other people to think about it at least.
yeah, that's what I mean. I always tell people, I'm not trying to convince you of what I think or what I see or what I believe. But when we have this conversation and it naturally flows out of me, you know that I was divinely put in front of you so that you could be like, oh,
You know
hmm,
what? You know what's kind of a blessing and a curse, and you just made me think of this. is that once you're awakened, you can't go back.
Yeah, I've said that before, man. I think it's a great thing because then you'd have people wanting to fall back because it might be quote unquote easier, but you can't. Like there's no going back because I've already when I've experienced anything, you and I've had these conversations, but it's like as I've continued to like awaken and grow, and I've tried to, I guess the monkey might want to pull me back into something, and I'm just like, yep, not doing that anymore. Like it just doesn't feel right anymore when you because I've already seen beyond the veil of a lot of things. So
So let me ask you this then, since we've been on the subject of reptilians and slavery and mankind and how we've been kept in the dark, do you believe that there is some type of spiritual warfare or warfare in general right now between good and evil?
yeah, I do believe that there is like a spiritual warfare. I think that there is. I believe that's going on. You gotta. I mean, think about how like when you're I don't know. I'm sure you've experienced this. I know I have. It's like when I say, okay, I tell myself I'm resolute to shift this aspect of my journey. Like I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to whatever the case is. Right. I swear, within moments, like something will be thrown in front of me to like try to pull me back to whatever it is I'm trying to evolve past. You know what I'm saying? And there are no
Preach.
coincidences. Huh?
I said preach.
No, I just there are no
I get
coincidences.
it. I agree with you.
My eyes, yeah. So it's like it's like okay, like I will be mindful and be like, hey, I'm stopping this, I'm doing that, I'm gonna freaking just move forward, and I'm gonna evolve past this old part of me, these old habits, these old patterns, whatever. And then it's like, lo and behold, here comes this situation or whatever it is, where it's like, here, boom, I'm gonna see if I can pull you right back into that. So I believe that's a form of spiritual warfare. You know what I'm saying? So I think that those are those periods where it's like once you set an intention and you're like, all right, this is it. Not that you won't ever falter, but I'm going to do my best to now stick with this, even when these things are coming at me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know what? Another thing I was
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
no. Another thing I was just thinking that you just reminded me of is when you're doing. There's this concept I've heard from multiple like celebrities, like Denzel Washington and like other people, and it's the concept of the devil, and it's like when you're doing bad, the devil will leave you alone. But when you're doing good, that's when he comes for you. What do you think about the concept of that?
See, that's the thing. Like, I guess when I was still like when I was younger and still kind of really in like I was raised Catholic, so I had that whole concept of the devil and all these things. So I do believe there's dark entities. I do believe there's that type of stuff. Is there like an actual devil and the hell and all these? You're gonna go be in fire. I don't know if any of that's actually true, um, but I do believe there are dark entities that will try to pull you back and hold you down. So like you said, like I've experienced it. I would say several times in my life where I'm like, yep, I'm making this shift. Boom, here I go, and I'm rolling, and then all of a sudden, it's just, these things are thrown at me to see if I'll falter, right? And I don't know if that's a test. I don't know what it is, but what I realize is that like and I've found myself in those positions and then faltering, right? And so like I don't know, it's like I told you earlier off camera, like I'm resolute to do these certain things and make certain changes in my life. Now I've been feeling it strongly the last few days, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna stick to this. I'm gonna go this direction, and I know that things will come at it, right? Things are gonna be thrown, but I think because I'm conscious and aware of it now, I can step back and be like, yeah, this is one of those situations. Like I'm good and walk away from it because I do believe there is that darkness that doesn't want us to bring light to it, right? I mean, I just believe that. I believe there's a darkness that doesn't want us to bring light to it. So when we are trying to bring that light, it's gonna battle as much as it can to try to prevent us from it.
Okay, so um, something that I sometimes struggle with is
What's that?
that the concept of how do you know if something bad is happening, right? or
Mhm.
someone is, or something, quote unquote, negative entity, how do you differentiate? How can you tell whether it's a test from God or something of a negative entity messing with you?
Well, you know what that makes me think of? It almost makes me think of a biblical aspect is like you go back to like the book of Job, right? And where he was being, in a sense, God allowed, you could call him the devil, whatever, but this like negative entity to test the faith, I guess. Um, so I don't know. I've heard a few different things from people that I do like their work, and some people will say that we are being tested, and other people say there's no such thing as us being tested. But I don't know. Like some people say it's just a part of our journey. Like you're gonna have to go through these different things in your journey. Like I've heard like that our soul comes here knowing what it's going to go through, and when we come into human form, we don't remember those things, so we have to go through each of these steps. I tend to feel like some things are tests. And I could be wrong, but I tend to feel like sometimes they are tests just to see if I'm going to like stay the course and continue to move forward to evolve into that person I know I really am and want to be and to be able to serve the way I want to serve. So I do. So sometimes I do feel like that I'm being tested. Um,
Do
so
you
I don't
ever
know.
feel do you ever, because I don't know, I view it, the reason why I have difficulty with it is because it's very, I don't know, the way I look at it, it's very complex, but it's also simple between positive and negative, or the God and devil. Like to me, it's almost the same thing. But then I hear all these stories, and I'm like, is it? Are we believing that maybe we're on a good track in our life, and then something goes wrong? Are we conditioned to believe that it's like some evil being, or is it like, how can you tell the difference between whether it's quote unquote the devil, or it's a test from a higher realm, or is it just what we're maybe not even, maybe subconsciously manifesting?
Yeah, that's a good point too. The subconscious manifestation of it, because you think about when you have it seems like a streak of life just going perfectly, everything seems like it's working out. I've heard people, and I think I'm sure I've done it subconsciously, where you're like fear, like, oh shoot, what if all this goes away? I've heard people like, comedians that I follow say that they're having the successes, and they're like, yeah, sometimes they'll be laying in bed and be like, damn, what if I lose all this tomorrow? So they're subconsciously they're speaking that out. It's like, don't worry about that. Um, I think my thing is like, when you're having, I think we're all going to have ups and downs on this journey, even if you have a long run of what seems like a great experience. Like, revel in it, appreciate it, have gratitude for it, because at some point there's going to be a valley. There's always peaks and valleys in this experience. So just understand, at some point, don't be fearful of it, but just understand you're going to go through some kind of valley, right? It could be you're having great successes in your career, but then your family life has this valley happen, right? Or you're having great successes in your family life and your career, and then you lose a person you care about, right? So there's going to be different things, man. Like I just believe that on this journey of being a human, I think that we have to go through all the goods and the ups and downs.
Yeah.
I always equated I use this analogy when I was a medic. I'd say, look, normal sinus rhythm doesn't look like this. It's not straight across, right? You have your QRST wave, and so your P wave. So I tell people you have all these little things going on. That's when your heart's healthy. I go, when you're dead, asystole is straight across, right? That's flatline. So I tell people, like, you don't want life just to be like that, because then you're dead. I'm like, so you're gonna have ups and downs. Just be happy when you're at the very top of it.
You just made me think of the concept. So, have you ever seen or heard of The Witcher?
I've heard of it.
Okay. So, it started as a book series by Andrzej Sapkowski. He's a Polish author,
Mhm.
and he created this whole, it's basically like he created a whole world, a whole character. But what's very interesting about it is that, and I think it relates to kind of what we're talking about with manifesting and energy and projecting and all this other stuff, is in the book series and the games and the show, there's one character, like they have a class of these shunned people who hunt down these these quote unquote evil monsters. But what's interesting about it, and what made me think about it, is because we're talking about heaven and hell and like negative and positive and energy, is like basically basically it plays on the concept that the only real monsters are men, or is man.
Hmm.
So what are your thoughts on when we're talking about manifesting and energy? Do you think that all of these stories about mythological type things or even religious things, do you think it's a metaphor most of the time for our own being? Or do you think that there's some validity in some of those mythologies or stories?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that honestly, yeah, the way you just put it, it probably is more of just pointing out who we are, right? You think about it, we're a part of
Oh yeah,
nature.
because a man or a woman can be a monster or can be an angel, right?
Absolutely. Well,
So
yeah. Think about, okay, so these stories are written for us to read. Um, but if you look at, like, we are a part of nature, but I always observe nature, and I always talk to people about this. I'm like, look at nature. Everything is out there. Like, a bird's just it's doing its bird thing, right? A dolphin's just doing its dolphin thing. Yes, they end up battling out of the fact of, like, okay, if this type of animal eats this type of animal to survive, they do that. But I don't think, and of course I don't, I'm not in their heads, but I don't think most animals look at each other and are like, I want to kill you because you're this color, this race. It's like, you don't have, you don't have I don't think you have a white dog be like, I want to kill a black dog, because they're like, that doesn't matter, you know.
yeah,
um
they're just like, I'm hungry, bro.
yeah, humans are the only ones that will go and harm other people, go and do stupid shit because of their ego, because of following the monkey mind, because of fear. Um, and so that's
Yeah,
why I was like,
but does it ever make you think like, why are we like that?
well, yeah, I think honestly, like, and it probably goes back from who knows when. It's been conditioned, right? It's been conditioned into us, especially from when once I think man figured out, like, oh man, I can manipulate and control situations, and get more than this one, that one, whatever the case is. Who knows when all of that started? But I think that that's been, and then whoever it was, the powers that be, decided when they started to realize this stuff and see it too. They're like, cool, I'm going to enforce this and encourage this so we can separate everybody more and more.
And so that I have more power.
Yeah, so that the one few will have the power and the resources and all those things. So if they were to, that's why they're so fearful of all of us starting to wake up and become more conscious and come together, because now they're fucked. I mean, you know what I mean? Because the more we come together, the less power they have over anybody, and they'll lose all of it eventually, which I've always said that Rome wasn't built in a day and it didn't crumble in a day, but it fucking crumbled. That's what's happening right now. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I wanted to. I know it's a little off topic, but again, I don't know, because like I've said before, I've always been different from other people, so I always think about things on a much deeper scale.
mm-hmm.
So like that's the whole reason why. That's the one great mystery of mankind. Like, why the fuck are we here?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Absolutely.
like, what's the, when you, it's just weird transitioning like to nowadays where it's like there used to be like cut and dry, black and white, and now everything seems like it's in the gray area.
Well, that's the thing, because I think there's always been a gray. That's why whenever it's funny, because it's funny you say that, because when I used to talk to people about things and they're like, no, it's just black or white. Like, there is no gray area. I'm like, nah, there is. And I used to always feel that there was. Not because I thought I was right. It's just the way I've felt inside my heart. There is a gray, there's a gray space. Um, and so I do believe that, yeah, I believe that there is always like that gray area, but it's just, we've been told it's either this way, or that's it. Right. Don't give them options. You know what I mean? Think about all the entities that be that have, like, tried to, by fear, by, hey, this is the only way to live life. I was just having this conversation earlier. It's just like, hey, you know, you're told that if you live like this, you're having a great life and you're a great person. But if you choose to not follow the quote unquote normal path, like you're a bum, you're not doing, you know, you're not doing what you were put here to do. Well, we weren't all supposed to follow the same path. So how could it be black or white? Right. I mean, the people that don't follow those paths, from my experience that I've learned over the years, that I've met over the years, like especially older folks with that wisdom, and like I would talk to them and they went and did this and did that and experienced this and experienced that. They're the ones that are like, oh, I loved my life. It was amazing. And then you have the ones that, like, yeah, I was in this 40-year marriage that I couldn't stand for 20 of it. I was in this job I was in this job for, 50 years and I couldn't stand past the first 2 days, right? Like all these things. And I'm not saying that you can't have a long-term wonderful relationship or a career that you do for 40 years in love. Of course you can. But how many people have I met and heard that don't like what they're doing, don't like their partners, don't like these things, but they're staying in these things because of a belief system.
Exactly. What you're saying is people aren't living by their truth.
Exactly. They're not living by they're not following their heart or their soul. They're literally listening to what they've been conditioned to believe.
So I'm going to sound a little crazy. So have you ever heard of, so you've heard of werewolves and stuff before, right?
Well, of course.
So we were talking about the concept of energy, other dimensions, reptilians, for example. And there's been plenty of stories about the concept of what are called dogmen or skinwalkers, and they're said to be demonic entities.
Hmm.
So, do you think that there's do you think there's a possibility of a realm that we are not aware of where these beings intersect with our realm and people see them, or do you think that all of this stuff is just metaphorical for the nature of mankind?
Honestly, that's hard to tell because I've been told that there are many, many different realms with many different things going on that we just don't perceive with our senses. Um, but at times, I think that the realms do intersect and they cross. Right, for a moment, something a veil's lifted, something breaks down, a portal opens, whatever you want to call it, and people see things like, "Whoa, what was that?" Right. So I believe that is definitely a possibility just because of like I said, from my studies, I understand there's many, many realms going on at one time. It's like I say, a different version of you lives in a different realm right now. I've like they said, like, I was just actually, it was funny. I've heard this stuff many times and I was just listening to something, I think last week, and that's what they were
Dude, you
saying.
just made me think. No, finish your story. But man, you just made me think about something.
Well, I was
Okay.
just gonna like when when we have this vision of so I have this vision of me and what I'm doing in the world and all these different things. And what from my understanding, is that version of me already exists. I just have to align with that, and then I'm there, right? So I'm already in that version of me in another realm. So that's and when I've heard that and I've read that initially, I was like, but now I get it more and more. Where I'm like, I think that is truth, and I'm like, so all I have to do is continue to shift things that I need to shift to align myself with that version of me. And then I'm living that life that I'm like, oh, this is exactly where I want to be.
So with that said, you just made me think about how we've talked about in previous episodes how the Earth is a place for us to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Based off the concept of what you just said, I just thought of this theory. What if, talking about different realms, different dimensions, what if the Earth is a dimension? What if the Earth is a simulation and those different versions of ourselves exist in other realms, and one could be good, one could be evil, and whatever we decide to align with is what we will become in this simulation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a great possibility because I mean the whole simulation concept. I've been hearing that over and over for the last several years that we live in a simulation. You know, they the was it the Egyptians, I think, or I can't remember who was that called it. They called it Maya, right? They said it's an illusion. Like we live in an illusion, you know. So think about how we can create things. Going back to manifestation, think
Yeah,
about how
we're all creators.
that's what I'm saying. We can all create.
We can all be creators, or we can be destroyers.
Exactly. So think about we have the power to create pretty much anything because everything was a thought first and then now existed, right? Like these things that we create. Um, and so we are all creators, but yeah, like you said, we can all destroy as well, which obviously we see people doing that on a regular basis, unfortunately. Um, but I think if we were to all use our gifts and our powers for good, it'd be one hell of a beautiful place to live. I mean,
But see,
I already find all the beauty in it, but I'm just saying.
that's the great question. Are we in a simulation?
I don't know. You have to wonder sometimes.
So have you ever traveled and you see someone who looks almost exactly like a family member that you have?
Oh yeah, I've seen people. I've gone places and seen people that are like, wow, that looks like not even so much maybe a family member, but like, wow, that looks like my friend so and so or whatever. Like, damn, they look really, really like them. You know what I mean? And they always say there's only one of us out there. But I have
Yeah,
seen people.
don't you think that's a little weird, right? You're seeing someone who looks exactly like someone that you've had
Yeah,
some portion of your life with.
yeah. No, it is strange. It really is. It really is. So like, think about that. So simulation, right? So they created the character. You don't look exactly alike, but you look similar.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I just
Well,
think like,
you know what? I've had the thing of happen with me, and I just had it happen the other day. It was last week, or week before. People tell me all the time, "I know you. You look really familiar." I'm like, "No."
I used to have that happen all the time.
Yeah, I've been having it happen a lot lately. And I'm like, I don't know you guys. I don't even know.
You
Like
should what you should say is, "Oh yeah, you've seen me on YouTube."
yeah, that's true. That's a good one. I gotta remember that.
Just be like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, you've seen our podcast."
exactly. Seriously. Yeah, because I remember with the guy that said it the other day, I was like, dude, I have no clue who you are, bro. I was like, I've never seen you in my life. So I don't know. But that goes back to the whole concept of deja vu, where I always tell people, I was like, have you ever traveled somewhere? And you're like, man, this place feels like home. I feel like I've been here before. It's like, well, I believe it's because you have in a different life or in a
But
different realm. Call it.
dude, dude. So we're talking about the concept of simulation. I was watching The Matrix a few weeks ago, and in The Matrix, the concept of a deja vu is when one of the evil robot guys finds you.
Mm.
So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place with this episode, but I'm just like I feel like, but that's the difficulty, as I feel like it all is interconnected. God, the devil, Matrix, aliens,
Well,
mythological
really,
creatures. Yeah.
it really is all interconnected. So I don't think that it's not like you're all over the place. It's just you can touch on so many things because it all kind of leads back to the one thing, right? It all leads back to one main thing. And I don't know. Yeah, like I said, it's all that stuff does relate with each other. It's all kind of crazy. But at the same time, it's kind of like it's a very interesting experience being a human, huh? Very
But
interesting.
doesn't it? This is what's always bothered me too, is that we're talking about all these theories and concepts and beliefs, and it's like, why on one side, I believe every living being on this planet, from us to dogs to monkeys to butterflies, we're all connected, right?
Hmm?
But why do you think so? Do you think that humans are the only ones that perceive these things? And why are we the way that we are? Or do you believe that maybe we can't comprehend how other beings, to include the animal kingdom, do you think that they can perceive the same things? We just can't understand it?
I think it's quite possible because I think that they think about like a dog, a cat, a wolf, whatever, right? Like they look at us, they know we are. whatever we are to them. But I think they can. I think they can perceive things. Wayne Dyer said, and I don't remember who it was. I don't know if it was a poet. What did he say? He said, I can't remember the exact quote, but he basically said, um, "Am I a human dreaming that I'm a butterfly, or am I a butterfly dreaming that I'm a human?"
Dang, dude, that's crazy.
I remember when I heard that, I was like, "Damn, that's true." I was like, "We don't really know," you know. And so, who knows, man? Like, we don't know what these animals perceive and these bugs perceive because we are all interconnected. So, who knows? It's interesting to ponder, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny you mentioned that because I was just telling you about my dog
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, like you
and
said,
how huh?
like you had said, you're like, "What kind of human are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, no." It's like, seriously, like, at what point? It's like, "Hey, what point were you a human there, bud?"
No, man, because that's what I'm saying. Like, are we like,
According to Dolores Cannon's work, she used to say that we will come back to this life in many different forms to experience all different aspects of it, right? So
do you think that being human is the final form, or do you think it doesn't necessarily work that way? Like, is there a hierarchy to it as opposed to what type of being you come back as?
I don't know. I don't know that I've ever heard her speak of that because she spoke about those things for like 30, 40 years. But I don't know that I ever, maybe she did and I just didn't pay attention. But yeah, but I don't know if there's an actual like order to it or if it's just random. I'm not sure. Because, the way she spoke of it and the way kind of like we hear other spiritual teachers talking about it is they say that, you know, like she spoke a lot about clearing up your karma, like in this lifetime. You and I spoke about it on here before. Clear up your karma in this lifetime so that you either, I guess, A, don't have to come back, or B, don't come back with those issues, those things. Um, so I don't know. I mean, who knows? Does that mean, like you just said, does that mean so once we go into human form, that's the only form we'll come back as? I don't know.
Yeah, it just makes me think like, because when you think about like Hinduism and reincarnation, um, it's like if you think about a hierarchy and the perception of the human mind, it's like the lowest form, for example, could be like a fly. And then the next life you come back as a bird. And the next life you come back as a wolf. And then eventually, apparently when you ascend, you don't come back at all,
Yeah.
which is what me and my wife are hoping for in the after we die with this life. Like, nope, I'm good, bro. I'm good, man. But what's crazy is that it seems like a lot of humans reincarnate as other humans
Yeah.
because you have to, like, I don't know, like if you like, that's what we were just talking about earlier, is like if you don't learn the lessons you're supposed to learn in this life, like let's say something bad happens or you're a bad person and you fucking just keep being a bad person, and then you in that life you didn't take those bad moments and learn from it, then you're destined to come back in the next one, you know.
With even more shit to deal with.
but but then it also plays in the concept of what you said about the most of the people with the most dharma are the ones who are supposed to teach everybody. They go
Wait,
through the world stuff so that they can teach people.
that's why they have the hardest life. But not, I don't, but see, I don't believe it's in a sense of like, not that you won't make mistakes. I think about somebody like Wayne Dyer. He's the one that I heard that from. And, he spoke about all the things he went through in his life. He went through, he talks about how when he was young, he went through, like, he was in an orphanage and foster homes, went through a bunch of abuses, and then as he got older, he dealt with addictions. Then he was married and divorced. He dealt with infidelity, like all these different things. And so he said, though, he goes, that led him up to the place where as he got older, he was really helping a lot of people. I mean, he was considered the father of motivation, but it wasn't even so much motivation. He was just his deep spiritual teachings got people to think beyond, the surface level, which is what he did for me. Um, so you know, it's not that we don't make mistakes, but if you're intentionally here harming people, that's not. I don't think that's really your dharma. Like if you're doing it with intention to, like, I'm gonna go. Like I've hurt people in relationships not intentionally, just because I didn't know why I was repeating the things I was repeating. But I've learned them now, and I've released them. But there are people that I think that just are out there like, hey, I don't care. I'm just gonna keep harming people. You know,
I'll be right back.
don't take too long.
I gotta clear my karma.
Too late for that.
So I have a question for you, Brian. Are you still there?
I am here.
So we were talking about the concept of knowing.
Uh huh.
Have you ever had an experience where, kind of like what I talked about earlier, where I had that dream and I woke up and I was super emotional because it's almost like a knowing. Have you ever have you ever experienced something like that where it's like it almost seems like you have a divine message or a divine synchronicity happen, and like after it you're like super like holy crap, this resonates so much, like I'm emotional.
Oh yeah, I've definitely had dreams like that where I definitely when we were talking about the dreams, like I feel like I've learning more and more that they do give us, like I do believe through, like maybe through the spirit realm, that we receive messages in our dreams, and I definitely feel like I've received some pretty like apparent messages through my dreams. So I woke up where I felt really emotional, whether it was somebody that had passed that spoke to me in my dream. I've seen that. Um, or maybe like I was still clearing karma in my dream, like from things that maybe I had done. Um, so yeah, for sure. I've had those dreams for sure. They've been crazy.
Do you have any experience that you want to share about that?
I can't remember anything clearly other than, well, I guess I can. I remember I had a friend die in a car accident years ago, and it was probably several days to a week later. I hadn't got to see him, and I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden, this one morning, I get this call from one of his cousins, which was our other friend, and told me what happened. And it was pretty heavy to to hear that. And then all of a sudden, that few days to a week later, have that dream of basically seeing him, and basically he's telling me like, I'm okay, everything's good. And back then I didn't understand what I understand now. So like I do remember waking up very emotional from that, and thinking like, damn, was that really him saying goodbye? And now understanding what I do believe that was the case. Talk about ringing, I'm just getting ringing in my ear right now, man.
Oh, are you serious?
Where odd.
Hey, that might be, I mean, not to sound like a jerk. I mean, this is genuine. That might be your friend.
Yeah, no, it could be for sure. Yep. So yeah, I've had that, and I've had a few others as well, but I don't remember any of them vividly right now. That one I do. That one has always pretty much stuck with me. But yeah, kind of crazy, man.
I've had. I mean, but that's why it's kind of like that person you're telling me about who sees spirits around other people. My wife has said stuff like that before, where I think, like I say, everything's interconnected. So, like for me, I like a lot of my messages are either in angel numbers or in dreams.
Hmm.
I feel like dreams play a very large part for me personally, which is why I tell the stories of my dreams. Um, but we're talking about the passing of a friend or a loved one, and every time, um, when my uncle passed and when my grandmother passed, I had dreams about both of them. And every once in a while, they'll come back. It's almost like that's what I'm saying with like the dimensions and like the afterlife. It's like I don't necessarily believe death is the end. I believe that death is just the transfer of our energy to one other place. So it's like you're not truly you're dead in the maybe you could say you're dead in the 3D realm, you're dead in the human realm, but you've transcended or gone to another place. Because for example, when my grandmother passed, this was when COVID was still a thing, and I could go on a tangent about COVID, but I won't. Um,
We'll do that another time for sure.
yeah, but shortly after she passed, like not very long, like a couple days. Like I was there, but I couldn't go see her because they're like, "Oh, you're not vaccinated," blah blah blah, right? Which is another form of control. Anyway, um, I was staying. This is when I was staying at my buddy's house, um, because I had moved my family in North Carolina and I was still stationed in Connecticut. But the whole room, it was summertime. The air was not on at that time, at that specific time. The whole room got cold and I was awake and I had a vision of like everything that happens to me when my eyes are closed, basically, like dreams or something like that. But in this instance, my eyes were closed and my grandmother like came to me, you know?
Hmm.
So I feel like this is stuff people don't really talk about. I feel like there's a lot more people in the world that experience these same type of things that's not brought to light. It's like there's more to our existence than just, oh, I'm living in this house. Oh, I have a job. It's like that's what we're talking about earlier with abilities and like these different realms, the spirit world, spirituality. It's like it's almost an injustice to not acknowledge it.
Yeah, I believe it's a lot deeper. I just believe that, I do, like I told you before, I've I've been watching like several podcasts now over the last, few years for sure that a lot more of that's going on. Like people are coming to light. Like it's like the near death experience. There's like the Next Level Soul podcast. Alex Ferrari's awesome podcast and has like all these near death experience folks on there. People that are channels. People, we're all channels. We just need to tap in. Um, but yeah, all these different things that we're experiencing, like what you just said with the room getting cold and your grandmother being out there and your grandmother appearing to you, like that's one of those clear signs they say when the room temperature changes all of a sudden with no apparent reasoning. um
That happens to me all the time.
yeah, so I believe, firmly believe it's spirits visiting you.
Because the last time, and then, well, if you don't mind, I'll tell this story. Um, when my uncle, because in my family, we've all been pretty tight knit. Like when I was a kid, we'd go over and all the cousins, all the uncles, everybody, all the aunts and uncles, everyone would be in one spot. And when my uncle passed, I had a very, I had yet another dream, except this time, and this is it kind of spooked me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. because he actually died like 45 minutes from my house. Um, but in this dream, he had cancer. They were doing surgery at Yale Hospital, and a few nights after he passed, I had a dream where he he came to me in my dreams again, and well, not again because it's the first time he had ever come to me in my dreams. And there was like a tornado outside and people screaming, and he's like, "Don't worry, we're all going to be fine, and we're all going to be together soon." And it was it was another weird dream, and I was like, "What the frick is going on here?" Like,
That's crazy.
so I don't know, man. I feel like I feel like not enough people talk about this kind of stuff because if I feel like if they talk about it, they think they'll sound crazy, you know? And it's just like these are messages. These are your loved ones. These are spirit. This is energy coming to you. So acknowledge it. Don't think you're. So I guess my message to everybody out there is like, if you have something that happens in your life and you have some strange thing that you think is strange, like in a dream, or maybe you're recognizing some stuff that's like we said earlier, there's no such thing as coincidence. Like, don't just discount it.
Yeah, no, not at all. I definitely believe that the more we share, the more that we're open to sharing. And again, I'm happy about these different podcasts that are coming out, just like ours, like to encourage these things because I think people are starting to see more and more that like we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that we are always connected, interconnected to the spiritual realm, and so it's a great thing it's a great thing for us to be able to share this freely because yeah, like you said, I'm sure there are still a lot of people having these experiences and not they're afraid to talk about them because like you said, we've been told that, oh, you're crazy if you're experiencing that stuff. We're not crazy. These are all like true things that are happening to people, for a greater purpose. Oftentimes we have people visit us from the other realm to give us messages, but how many people ignore that because of fear, right? Oh, I just got this message yesterday from grandma who died. Well, then you have these family members saying like, "Oh, I think you're nuts." No, you're not nuts. You literally just got a message. So I think it's a beautiful thing because that's where we're getting guidance. I
I
I
just,
ask, I ask my angels and guides to guide me every single day, every moment. Like lead me along.
I do the same, dude, I do the same thing. Every morning I say the Our Father, and then I thank the angels, my ancestors, everything. I'm like, hey, thank you very much. And also showing gratitude, like that's also projecting
Yep.
positivity and at the same time manifesting positivity.
Yep.
So it's like, so actually, Brian, I took a note out of what you told me, and I started to ask God, like, how can I serve today?
Sweet.
So
I really believe the more we ask that and with sincerity, that we will be shown each day, each moment, what we should be doing. Um, and as long as we're open to perceive it and hear it, and then we go with it, dude, you'll be on your path all the time. And that's when I think our life just tends to flow because we're here serving the purposes that we were put here for with an open heart, and life tends to go so much better at that point, right? Instead of what's in it for me, how can I serve?
and with that said, are there any closing remarks, good sir?
No, I appreciate the episode, man. I appreciate the fact that we touched on a little bit of everything. I think we appreciate all you guys that will like, subscribe, and share. You know, feel free to comment. I know some of this stuff probably very esoteric and out there, but hey, like we want to open up your minds. We want to help people become more conscious and aware and kind of go deeper beyond this surface level that we've been taught to live on. Um, yeah, reach out to us. We're here definitely I'm here to serve anybody that I can. So reach out with comments and questions.
Yeah, I'd like to say, based off what Brian just said, if you have a story that's similar to kind of what you've heard in any of our episodes, feel free to comment. Feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to have you on. Because our podcast is all about bringing light to the world. And even if you hear some of the things that we say and you're like, oh man, I've experienced the same thing, we'd love to have you comment and hear about your stories, because we'll talk about it on different episodes. So like, share, subscribe, um, and share your stories, because I feel like this is a lot of stuff that people don't share because they're afraid of it. But on this channel, you don't have to be afraid of sharing anything like that. So thank you for watching.
Absolutely. No, definitely. Just want to touch on this real quick. Yeah, like Nate said, definitely feel free to reach out if you're willing to come on. We can go, three-way with all of us on here, and we'd love to hear your stories. I love hearing people's stories and experiences. So definitely reach out. That'd be awesome.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
See you next time.